thanks for being here today. Hopefully you enjoyed your lunch. I would like us to give a round of applause to David. We have a few people joining us today from Saskatoon. I would like to welcome Jason Yoakum, the CEO of the Saskatoon Regional Association of Realtors. Trevor Smith, the COO. The IT manager. Sean Cummins, Director of Education. And Wendy Lumberville, Education Coordinator. Somebody with a hard last name like mine. All right. I see some new faces with us today that I haven't seen before. I think there's two people at that table back there. I'm sorry to call you out. Can you please stand up and introduce yourself?
Robert Kozak, we actually Brooklyn. We took over the company about a year ago.
Welcome.
Okay, Scott.
Welcome. All right, so first up today is someone we're all familiar with. Bernie Weinbender is not new to the real estate practice, but he is the new practice advisor for the Saskatchewan Real Estate Commission. Bernie is here to tell us about the new position and how it's going so far and how it affects us. Bernie, would you please like to come up?
Well, thank you. Good to see a bunch of you again. And thanks to the ARR for inviting me here today. So, more what I'm after today is to bring awareness to my position of practice advisor, being as it's new. There's quite a few that aren't just aware of that it even exists, and the services there is what it is. So, just a bit about myself, because a lot of you know me, but there's probably some who don't. I started back in 1986 in sales at Swift Current. From there I went out to Vancouver for a year in 1990-91 in sales, and then came back to Swift Current, bought a franchise there, the Century 21 franchise, brokered and owned it. From there I came to Regina and brokered the Century 21 office here for quite a few years. And then personal family reasons I had to move, so moved into Medicine Hat. I went into real estate there for a while last year and was dual licensed actually for a while. I've been involved in the associations too over the years, quite a bit. So in Swift Current I was board president there 3 terms. I went through all the positions and directors and stuff like that. I sat on the ASR committees, some of those I sat on. I was a board director for ARR for 1 term. I was a commission member for a term also from 14 to 2017. And sat on their committees there, the education committee, and also I was on the investigation committee for quite a few years, right up until I took this position. I had to step off of that. And also had to let my license go, of course, when I took this position, because I can't sell and give you guys advice. So, and involved in charities and things like that too. So that gives you an idea, a bit of my history. The practice advisor is a service that's for brokers, associate brokers, and branch managers, is what it's designed for. So, is it for agents? It isn't intended for agents. It's for the brokers to take that information to their agents and that type of thing. Brokers or managers. And associate brokers fall in here too then, of course. But that doesn't mean I'm going to turn my back on an agent when they call. They have called already. This position was launched in early June, is when it first started. So when an agent does call, just so you know, the first thing usually I'll do is just ask them, have you talked to your broker first? Because I don't want to start interfering with that broker's teaching and stuff and their policies in the office. And with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, the rest all have talked to the broker. The broker has advised, asked if they could just call me direct and get the information. So I mean, that's fine, I will do that. But 95% of the calls probably at least are coming from brokers and managers. I can be reached through the commission phone number, extension 9, or by my email, practiceadvisor@srec.ca. And the associations will have that information and get it to you if anybody needs it. During their business hours is what I'll do. So I'm probably not going to be doing anything after 5 or early in the morning or on weekends, because it's just a bad habit, and it's something that would run me to the clock till 11 or 12 at night. So I'm sure everybody understands it's going to have to be during commission hours, just like the rest of the staff and that type of thing. So the difference with my position as practice advisor is it's on a confidential, non-biased relationship with whoever's calling in. So that conversation, whatever is discussed, whatever information I have, that just stays with me. That does not go any further to the commission. And they actually have made a note that they will not use any of that information for future disciplinary actions against a registrar. So it's a position where you should feel very comfortable in calling me and discussing everything. You can tell me names, you don't have to, but you can tell me names and just spout right off if you want. It just stops and stays right there. What I do is I'm compiling all of that information, the questions and my replies, to later use for your benefit and all registrants' benefits in education purposes later, or whatever that case may be. But in doing that, I reword the questions, I'll reword replies suitably to those questions. So they're not going to get the question that you asked, unless it's a very common, straightforward question type of thing. And even at that, they'll never get your name, you never know who has called. But just to let you know, I am using that information because it's good information. So far, what's happening since the beginning of June, starting, calls have been coming in, not, as I would see it, not too bad really. There's been enough. I would like to see a lot more, and that's the idea, is to bring awareness here. There's lots that phone up and say, wasn't aware of this, just found out that type of thing or whatever. So I can handle a lot more of a load, that's for sure. So my goal is to be readily accessible, provide you with courteous responses, so nothing sarcastic or smart, but and guide you in a professional, ethical, and compliant manner for your practice. That's really my goal. I will always try and respond within that day, or sooner if I can. The difference between giving information, and brokers will know this, is a lot of times if you know the answer, you just, no, you can't do that, here's why type of thing. And I usually have almost all of those answers. It'd be rare that I don't, with the experience I've had over the years type of thing. But that's not good enough. When I'm giving you your answer, I need to have some backup with it, some justification, where it came from and why you can't. So what I will be doing is, when I give you your answer, I will be quoting the act or the bylaws, something from the legislation. And if I can't, I will give you enough of an answer, put you on hold. Hold meaning I'll get back to you as soon as possible, reasonable amount of time, with those quotes, sections from the act, the bylaws, and that type of thing. So you have it right at hand. And a lot of times what it is it can be a broker phoning for an agent that's doing something, and it's nice to be able to take back to that agent, here is the quote, here's why this isn't permitted type of thing. So, and justification for you too, when you're phoning, you've got it, this is why. When it's fairly basic, the questions, I mean the replies can be fairly simple, that type of thing. Usually they aren't. When they came to me, they're fairly complicated already, and does take me a bit of research to find out a bylaw will apply, but I also want to see if an act applies too. And a lot of times what I'm doing when I'm researching is actually trying to find out if you can do what you're asking. I want to see if you can do that and prove that you can. And if you can't, then that's the answer you get, of course, justification. So, as far as similarity in that will be happening, but just the way it's questions are coming in right now from the start. Very few have been similar. Maybe a handful of questions. The rest have all been different in some manner or another. So, as time goes on, the more similar ones is the ones that I want to pull out and start bringing out in education. So part of also with my position is I provide input to the commission when asked to their committees or the staff or anything like that. If they're wanting to know what's happening out in the field or what the feel is, that type of thing. I'm also providing that to the commission too, and over time we'll be involved in all that type of thing also. So, other than that, that's really what I wanted to do, is just bring this awareness and give you a good feel of what I do, and hopefully you would feel comfortable enough. I mean, that's up to you. If you want to phone the commission and talk to them, that's what they're there for too. But I would hope call me all you can. I'll take as much as I can, that's for sure. Any questions? Jason.
Hi, Jason, Central 21 Dome. So obviously you and I have chatted a few times over the last couple of months. So just to say thanks for the help from you. It's been valuable, and I would encourage the brokers to use your service as well.
Good. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. Yeah, would note a lot of the calls coming in the first couple of months were they were thanking me for taking on this position. I think they really appreciated it. It's going over quite well so far. Anything else? What I hope to do in the future is and what I probably will be doing is bringing presentations and delivery points, issues that I want to get to you and as a group rather than one-on-one all the times. All right, great. Thank you very
Alright, thanks Bernie. Alright, next on our agenda today is the Saskatchewan Realtors Association update, and we're going to have Greg Carter Gates from MMP to come give us an update.
All right, thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here with you as a broker group again. My name's Craig Katarna Gates. I'm a partner with MNP, or formerly Myers Norris Penny. You know, we used to be called. I joined the firm about 11 years ago. We were called Myers Norris Penny at the time, and people said, "Where do you work?" And I'd say Myers Norris Penny. They'd say, "What's that?" And I'd say, "Well, MNP." And they go, "Oh yeah, we know who MNP is." And then as we've grown as a firm and we started to become more national and we were expanding the markets that we were in, you know, when people do that, they tend to get down to smaller letters and acronyms and stuff, right? So we officially, legally changed the name of the firm to MNP. So then I'd start telling people, "Where do you work?" "I work at MNP." They go, "Well, what's that?" And I'd say, "Well, Myers Norris Penny." And they'd be like, "Well, yeah, of course, we know who Myers Norris Penny is." So I'd go back to my partners and I'd say, "Geez, how many millions of dollars did we spend rebranding the company for that?" But anyways, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share with you some updates about the transition and evolution to a single association for the benefit of members in the province today. We were remarking at the table the conversation. It's been about a year ago that myself and my colleagues from MNP began the opportunity to be able to work with the realtor profession in the province. And I'll tell you what, over that time, over the past year, I've had a chance to meet a tremendous group of professionals and business people from around the province. So many people that are caring about our community and advancing the growth of our province and stuff. So it's been fantastic to get a chance to meet so many wonderful people. I wanted today to share with you really some quick updates, and I had a few things I wanted to touch on. I want to tell you a little bit about the implementation approach that has been undertaken Through the leadership of the Transition Committee, since the approval to proceed to a single association back in March. I'll provide you a little bit of a dashboard summary that will give you a visual representation of our progress to date in various areas. And I'll give you some update about some areas of focus that the group has been working on. And then as well too, share with you some of the foundations that have been enabling and supporting the success of this important initiative. And of course, happy to answer questions as well too. And like Bernie, I'd love to get some hard ones as well too from the audience. So look forward to those. The first thing I just wanted to touch on is really principles. At the outset, when we started the Member Forward initiative, I remember one of my very first calls with what was called the working group at that time. We set out a very clear set of principles to be able to act as foundations for the exercise that we were embarking on behalf of members. And these principles continue to be a strong foundation and an important foundation for the work that the Transition Committee is carrying on since the vote process in the springtime. Here's a quick snapshot. I'll just walk through this, explain to you a little bit about what has been the overall implementation approach that's been undertaken by the Transition Committee, along with some of the various supporting committees and the staff as well too. There's really been, I think, 4 main pillars that have been contributing to the work that has been occurring really since April. First of all, the establishment and maintenance of very strong and effective governance for the overall initiative. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We've developed as well too a master project plan to be able to guide our work. We've been implementing, I think, very effective project management and accountability through the process. And 4th pillar has been communication to members as well too. So I'll talk about each one of those pillars and give you a little bit more of a sense of what we're doing. First of all, in terms of governance, when we had established, came out of the vote process in the spring, and we're moving forward with the initiative towards implementation, that we created a transition committee comprised of members, realtor members from around the province. Again, a strong breakdown of members from the equivalent representation from Regina, Saskatoon, and folks from rural parts of the province. That transition committee then came together to provide overall leadership to the implementation process. But we recognized that there was going to be a lot of heavy lifting that needed to get done, important work that needed to get done on behalf of members in order to have an organization that was stood up and operations ready for January the 1st. So we identified different buckets of work that needed to get done, and that led to the creation of really a subcommittee structure. So we had created really 5 different subcommittees. The first one was a governance committee. Jason, who's the chair of that committee, will be up in a few moments to share some updates on behalf of that group. We created as well a legacy group, a member communications subcommittee, and a CEO selection committee. I'll talk a little bit more on the next couple slides, just about a couple bullets, which each of these different groups is focused on working on. As well too, we created an integration subcommittee to be able to align the operations and the day-to-day working of the 3 associations together into one effective and seamless organization. So I think governance has been a very critical and important element to being able to drive our implementation forward. The second piece that we focused on as a collective group was establishing a very comprehensive and integrated plan for being able to move forward towards implementation. We put a stake in the ground, and it was very clear that January 1st we need to have a new association up and running and be able to provide all the different supports and tools that you as members expect and that your staff expect. So we created this comprehensive master plan. We created a budget tracking process within that plan to be able to make sure that we were tracking the expenses and the investments that were being made back to the Member Forward business plan. It's an Excel-based tool, and essentially what we've done is we've created, for those of you familiar with Microsoft Excel, along the bottom of the tabs, each tab represents a different subcommittee or component of work that is being completed. And each tab lists out a series of activities and actions that they're accountable for. It allows them to report on the progress of their particular group or committee, as well as we've had each group identify what are some of the potential risks that they might face in undertaking their implementation. We've also created a series of visual summaries that allow for very clear reporting back to members of the transition committee and the various committee structures as well too. Because one of the things that we wanted to be able to avoid was a situation where we spent extensive amount of time reporting back to each other about what each other was doing. So we've created this tool, this dashboard system to be able to help be able to report on things. And then as well too, it's helped us to be able to streamline the communication that we're doing. Very effective project management as well too. I have to really salute the folks that have been involved in the initiative on your behalf, whether it be the members of the association who have been putting their time and effort into participating in this, either as a member of the transition committee or other members that have been participating in some of the various subcommittees. There's been great leadership from an incredible group of people in your profession to be able to make this work happen. As well too, it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the staff, and many of them are in the room today, both from the ARR and then our guests that are down here today from the Saskatoon Association as well too. They have been working tremendously hard on being able to get things done, and in all fairness, they've impressed me a lot, especially over the summer months when there was lots of distractions in a beautiful province like we have here in Saskatchewan. An incredible amount of work has gotten done on behalf of the members as far as advancing the work. And it's not lost on me that the fact that they're maintaining the day-to-day operations of these associations while also to supporting this overall transition and transformation. So when you get a chance, please take a moment to say thank you to the hardworking staff at the various associations in the province. The other thing we've done is had regular scheduled meetings for each of the different subcommittees. That's provided a structure and a level of accountability. And then we've had monthly meetings for the transition committee that have been facilitated by myself to be able to just make sure that we're overall on project and on task. And folks around the table will say, if anyone's slipping on what they need to do, there's no hiding. I'll call them out. We'll make sure that they're held accountable for the work that needs to get completed. The other important element as well too has obviously been and will continue to be communication to members. We have been providing through the various association newsletters and other vehicles bi-weekly communications to really keep you as members, you as brokers and your members involved and updated on really core items. We are anticipating, or you can anticipate to see an increased level of communication about the transition process here in the fall period of time as we move closer and closer to January 1st. There'll just be a number of important elements to be able to share out with the membership. So as of today, we're 112 days to implementation. I have a countdown clock on my phone on an app. So I regularly see how many more days it is until January 1st. Today it's 112, and we just met last week as a leadership group with the Transition Committee in Saskatoon on September the 5th. We had a chance to be able to lay out really what is our critical path now that we're through the summer. And what I've talked about with the group is you're going to hit the magic 100 days soon. And when you hit 100 days, the stress level goes up a little bit more. Right? And then each day you get closer to January 1st, the stress level can build. So the best way to be able to manage that stress level is be proactive and get things done. So we met last week. We have identified a critical path to be able to get us to successfully to launch on January 1. And one of the visual items that we've been using has been this dashboard that's one of the first tabs in the master project plan that I talked about. And it follows a traffic light system. Green is good, lots of green on the board, so that's positive. Yellow are signs of caution, and red is where we're having problems or challenges. The good news is there's no red on the board, right? But this is an overall traffic light system that gives us an overall sense that the project overall, when we met, when we prepared the materials on September 3rd for the September 5th meeting, everything was, our overall status was green. There's a couple items where timelines, where we have a couple yellow lights on a couple of subcommittees. It's just where we've had a little slippage in timelines due to scheduling or other elements and stuff, but overall, we're still progressing well to achieve the overall outcomes and deliverables from those groups and stuff. So that's really what I wanted to be able to do, is just give you a sense of the fact that the overall progress of the initiative is very positive, and an incredible amount of work is being able to be done. So when we met last week, when I reported back to the transition committee after my work with the various committee chairs and subcommittee chairs, rolling up all of the status of information, I was happy to report to the group that we're on budget and on time as far as the delivery. I think that's critically important for you as brokers to be able to know as well too, that all this hard work is paying off. Now I added the so far part because I don't want people getting too comfortable. I don't want them thinking that just because we're in a good spot now we can put our feet up and coast until December 31st, right? So the so far is a critically important element because we can't coast at this point. All right. I just wanted to give a quick sense of what these different groups are doing, and I didn't want to go into an exhaustive amount of detail and take up time unnecessarily this afternoon with you, but I did want to give you a sense of what are the major deliverables that each of these different groups are. So we've constituted these various groups. What are they doing? So the governance subcommittee, which again is chaired by Jason Cassette from down here in Regina, their main two areas that they're focusing on is really creating a governance framework for the new board and for the organization moving forward, as well too developing the election processes for 2019 and beyond, and Jason will talk in a few moments a little bit more about those. The legacy committee, that's chaired as well too by Lane down here in Regina. It has been assessing the various sponsorship events, awards programs that the three different associations have. So you can appreciate as we're moving towards a single association, we need to decide which ones of these various programs are still going to exist in the future. So they've been compiling an inventory of those various programs. There'll be some consultation that'll be coming out to members here in September to get feedback from members that will ultimately tie into a recommendation about what's the portfolio of various events and initiatives that should be used to celebrate and build the profession into the future. The third subcommittee is member communication, and it's really providing oversight and advice for member communications, working with Renee Green and the rest of the staff on being able to make sure that we have a cohesive and integrated approach to sharing information with members in the province. And as well too, they are responsible for refining a series of options around what the new brand and logo will be for the association. So some tremendous work is being undertaken in that particular area. Again, this is going to be an area where we're going to be reaching out, or the committee will be reaching out to members as well too to get their feedback. They're going to have a short list of potential logos or images that would emulate the brand identity of the profession moving forward, and they'll want to be hearing back from members in the province to get your feedback on which one you think best represents the profession moving forward. So that's a very important element. CEO selection. This one garners some interest and attention from folks as well too. This is going to be a critically important decision for the organization as to who its first leader is going to be. The CEO selection subcommittee was chaired by Cliff Iverson, again another Regina person, who has been, and Cliff and his team, what they've been doing is first and foremost establishing a fair and effective and professional process to be able to identify and select the appropriate candidate moving forward. And they're well into that process. There's no announcement to share yet, but we're moving along well in that process. And Cliff and his committee will be recommending who the candidate should be in the proposed terms of employment back to the transition committee. And hopefully there'll be information to share shortly with members on that. The fifth committee, the major committee that we've created, was one called an integration subcommittee. And this was really designed to be a collaborative forum for communication about how we were going to bring together and align the various operations of the three different associations together. Because you can appreciate whether it's member service, technology, finance, operations, government relations, or education. Things are done differently between the three associations based upon history. So the question has been, how are we going to do these important elements that are often the really strong member-facing components? How are we going to deliver and provide these things moving forward? So we created a forum through this integration committee with senior staff from the three different associations, along with the co-chairs, including Dave Marcus and Stephen Bobiach, to essentially work as an integration committee to be able to identify and facilitate conversation about how we're going to be able to accomplish these items. We have individual, what we call POPs, or plans on a page for each one of these areas that lay out the various outcomes and activities and what's intended to achieve. Again, that was all part of our project management approach. And I think this has again been a very effective committee for having very strong conversations. This is the one committee that I get a chance to sit on most regularly as far as its calls and its online meetings. And one of the things I continue to be impressed with is the level of focus and commitment to what are the needs of the members when we're talking about how we align these various operational elements. It's a consistent and continued focus to those discussions. Right? So that's a very important group. So we met last week in Saskatoon on September the 5th. One of the pieces I had facilitated with the transition committee was just, we've accomplished an amazing amount over the last 4 months. We're really at the midpoint as we look down to December 31st launch. Let's pause and take a moment to celebrate where we've come to. And there's an opportunity to recognize the incredible contributions of the staff to date through that process. But as well to stop and say what's contributing to our success, what's helping us to be able to accomplish what we're getting done, and let's make sure we continue to sustain those behaviors or those practices that are helping us to be successful, to be mindful and aware of what those are. So when I asked the group that question, and there was a series of, I think, very important things that came out. One of them was this one team approach. There's been a tremendous amount of collaboration. No doubt having a hard deadline and a commitment to you as members has been a motivation for getting things done. The balanced geographic representation, having so many different viewpoints and perspectives from members around the province has been critically important. Strong working relationships between the 3 different associations has been fundamentally important, and I think those have really actually strengthened and taken off more through this process. I put it down here bluntly: minimizing turf wars, focusing on the needs of the member at the end of the day, and not getting into self-interest or the interests of individual organizations. I also too heard from the group that we had a shared vision, a direction, and a plan that we've been executing. We've been using electronic meetings that have been integrating people from around the province. So when we get together and meet, I always think of Skype because that's a platform we use. Zoom, thank you. So Zoom meetings and stuff where people are spread out around the province. Everyone's sitting in front of their computer. Those that that feel comfortable flip on their camera, and we can all see each other, and we can interact, and we can see what and have a conversation back and forth. Some people are often sitting in a boardroom. Some people are sitting individually at their desk or at home. But it really allows us an opportunity to be able to engage and interact and build fellowship as we go through the process. The master plan's been important, and then we've also been expanding the use of a collaboration tool called Microsoft Teams. And it's just essentially a fancy tool, well, maybe not even that fancy, but a really practical tool that allows you to inventory all the documents together for the initiative, so everybody has access to all the same information. And then we can also too have the ability to update documents in real time by multiple people. So that's been very effective. The other piece has been leadership and commitment, and at the end of the day, I think this is really what's most important. Is strong leadership from the committee members and staff. Again, the work of the staff to be able to balance the day-to-day activities of the organization and keep the day-to-day business running while still supporting this initiative. There's been a tremendous amount of collaboration. In fact, I continually hear more and more stories about how the staff are thinking, acting, and working together as one group and one team for the benefit of members. And then also too, through that, an incredible amount of trust that's being built through the initiative. So these are all, I think, things that are fueling the success of the group, and I think very important things that we need to be mindful as we push forward in the next 4 months to be able to get the organization successfully launched and ready for business on January 1 to support you and your teams. Okay. So that's my quick update. I don't know if it's best I take questions now before we have Jason speak a little bit about further updates from a governance perspective. So any questions at all as far as our progress from an implementation perspective? I was really hoping for the hard ones, folks.
Right, so on your traffic light, there was no green light on the CEO thing. You covered it off later. So you're saying that we're on track?
It's a great question. We have been, as you can appreciate, all of the discussions related to the CEO selection have been done in camera. So we've ensured staff are not in the room for those conversations. And as a result, we've not been posting any information on any of the shared sites or on the dashboard about the status of the work of that committee, because we've been trying to keep that all confidential and managed in a professional way. But to your point, yes, things are on track. I think that we are getting close to being able to make an announcement and make a decision, but we need to allow, and I think we've heard from folks, people are anxious to hear who's the CEO going to be, who's that individual, what are they bringing to the table, why are they excited about the role. But I think that the caution has been we have to make sure that there's a professional approach to how that decision is made, how it's rolled out, and how it's communicated, and that type of stuff. We have to be able to protect ultimately the interests of members at the end of the day. So I keep saying to people, just have a little more patience, and I think we'll be there shortly.
Do you have a hard date yet as to when that's going to happen?
No, in fact, I've encouraged us not to have a hard date, because if we make a hard date, it do one of two things. It could force us to make a quick decision that's not well thought out, which may not be in the interest of members. The other thing as well too is if we commit to a hard date, it gives either party potential leverage over the other, which again may not be in the interest of members. So my comment has been, we need to do this professionally, we need to take our time, we need to do it right, and then when we're ready to make an announcement, we'll share the great news with the membership. Okay. Other questions? Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. If there's no other questions, I will introduce Jason, and Jason's going to share with us a little bit more information specifically about the work of the governance subcommittee and the plans for it's really kind of the election process moving forward. Right? All right.
Okay, so picture this. 20 realtors from around the province, put them in a room and tell them to come out with a decision. Hey, you can picture that, right? So thanks to Craig for your great cat herding skills, that's for sure, keeping us on track. And also, I mean, you beat it to death, but every time there's a decision of a bunch of realtors sitting in that room, it ultimately falls back on these guys, the CEOs, their staff, and it's been an enormous amount of work that they're undertaking. So be cognizant and just be appreciative of that. So yeah, so thanks, Craig. So what I want to update you on is just the election process, essentially. Governance committee has been meeting. We've been looking at the policy governance model. We're working on that with a third-party expert to help make sure that that's coordinated properly. So I don't really have an update on that until we get a little further down the road. But the one item that we are working on that I want to talk to you about is that we are tasked to determine fair and effective rules around the nomination and election of the board for the SRA going into 2019. So Lane Boheen, Karen Wees, Sherry Willick, Randy Singler, Michelle Rogers, as well as staff support. We've been meeting and bringing this information forward. We've met numerous times with the help of all of those staff and working on identifying these best processes from the ARR and the SRAR. And we now have a process to fill those positions getting into for 2020 and facilitate those elections for future years. So some background before I give you a high level walk through the process is the member forward plan called for up to 6 transition committee members to move forward and make up half of the 2020 board for the SRA for 1-year terms. This was done with the design to create some continuity between the transition committee and the new board in 2020. As it turns out, we have 5, not 6, but 5 members of that existing transition committee who have decided to move forward in those 1-year terms, and that leaves 7 open positions on the board for 2020. So as follows, we have a 1-year term in Saskatoon, in the Saskatoon region, and we have 2 2-year terms in Saskatoon as well. We have 2 2-year terms in both the Regina and the Saskatchewan regions. So just to explain what some of those regions are for everybody, the model of regional makeup for the board was created and based on feedback that we received from members before and after the member forward process. So the SRA Board of Directors will be made up of members elected from 3 regions as defined in the SRA bylaws. 4 from each of the Regina, Saskatoon, and what we call the Saskatchewan region. Regina and Saskatoon regions are defined by the StatsCan Census Metropolitan Area. It's called the CMA, which defines those boundaries. And the Saskatchewan region includes everything which are not in those 2 main centers, but basically everything else in the province. So similar to the process used for the ARR elections, an expression of interest must be sent to the association, and those interested will complete a skills matrix that will be used by the committee to create a slate of candidates. Very similar process that's been used in both models, both in Saskatoon and Regina. You would have received a I won't get off the topic here. So the committee slate will be published by members in early October, and a final slate will be published for members with ballots for the election in mid-October as well. So once the committee has a slate, we'll post that, and if there's anybody else that wants to run, they'll have that opportunity to do so as well, up to mid-October. The SRA is using a mail-in balloting system for its elections, so important to know. Members will have to print the ballot that's emailed to them, fill it out, and send the original to either the Saskatoon Service Center or the Regina Service Center by the end of November, and with counting commencing in early December. I know we've had some talks about some of the dates. There could be some leeway either side of the dates that we've set, but those are the general rough timelines, is early December. MNP has been appointed as scrutineers for this process across the province, and will count the ballots and report the results to the transition committee in the first week of December. Results will then be announced to members. So that's the election process. It eliminates what a lot of people, have come accustomed to those election meetings that we've been having. So on Friday, you would have already received the nominations email with the expression of interest included, and I encourage all of you as brokers, obviously in your offices, to spread the word and consider having your agents or yourself contribute to the success of the SRA going forward. That's it. Is there any questions with the process that I can answer?
What's the Regina Service Center? You said sending you to the
It'll be our ARR office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so the offices remain, so. Okay. Anything else? Good. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Jason. Part of the transition, as Craig outlined, was coming to a consensus on the new set of MLS rules for the new association. With an update on MLS rules, adoption is the ARR President and Transition Committee Chair, Dave Marcus. Can you please come up?
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so as Craig identified earlier, one of the items crucial to the functioning of the SRA was the creation of a single set of MLS rules for the province. The goal of achieving a common harmonized set of rules for the province actually predates the member forward process. It was started in 2018 as feedback from the first attempt to create one realtor association for the province. It wasn't the first attempt, that was like the sixth. At that time, the board of directors from ARR and SRAR struck a joint task force with the goal of the creation of a single set of MLS rules that could be adopted by both associations. The task force was struck and the work started. In fact, a draft recommendation was about to come to the boards in Regina and Saskatoon in the fall of last year. However, the process was halted as the member forward project ramped up. So once the member forward vote was successful, the work resumed on MLS rules, this time by the integration committee and transition committees. Both groups worked from the common ground reached by the original MLS rules task force and completed the work, a new set of MLS rules for the SRA. So as you saw in the email sent to brokers on August 15th, the ARR Board of Directors accepted a transition committee recommendation to adopt the SRA rules for October 1st. We did that in order to facilitate a smoother transition for members. The goal was to try to avoid a lot of changes all landing at the beginning of the year. So members told us, don't change everything all at once. We don't want a whole bunch of changes. Let's make this a little easier. So we were looking for a way to make it easier for members, allow for an easier and smoother transition process. So the changes that are material to ARR members have been well communicated. Feedback has been received. And as the nature of these sort of things, we receive both negative and positive feedback. We are listening to the feedback and recording it so that those changes can be considered in the future. There was a lot of discussion at the task force level, as well within the integration and transition committees, and at the ARR board table about the impacts of modifications. Directors and volunteer members on committees are aware that there's always an adjustment period for change. MLS rules are a living document and will be adjusted over time to meet the needs of association members in the marketplace. So this is not meant to be, the be all and end all. There's always room to, we always want to do better. So we understand that members will interpret rules and rule changes differently, The bottom line is members do not need to change the way they do their business. The vast majority of rules that SRAR and ARR had previously had are and were the same. So middle ground and best practices were sought on the differences. We took a set of rules from Saskatoon, we took a set of rules from Regina, we put them together, and we were able to come together very, very nicely on almost every single thing. So there was just a few things that were points of discussion, and like I said, that came out on the August 15th email that went out to everybody. You can see the differences were. So, barring any questions, I'll call on Rob Ringer, Manager of Operations, to take us through some items of importance, unless you have any questions for me first. No? Take it away, Rob.
Hi everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you, David. Okay. These are for show only part of the wardrobe, just as an FYI. So the new rules come into effect October 1, as Dave outlined. So we did put the communication out to members. Some important information contained in that. Primary to that was the new notice of sale form. So I've got examples of it on the tables today. So that form can be found in the email that went out to you, as well as the Matrix post that is up right now. I think as of tomorrow it will be on RealtorLink, and most importantly, it will be ready for you October 1 in web forms, so you can use that new notice of sale form as of that day. We actually have a few folks using it now to report their sales. Let's see where I went with that. Get that one? If your brokerage team has any questions on how to fill it out, by all means get them to call our data team. They are ready for your calls and can walk anybody through who has issues filling it out. It is extremely straightforward, however. So that's the new notice of sale form and where to find it. And again, it'll be getting into web forms very soon. Another important point is around data monitoring and compliance. As you know, as an organization, currently and moving forward in the SRA, maintaining quality data in the MLS system is a commitment to the organization. We have listened to feedback from members on things like administrative penalties, and so as of January 1, 2020, contract, data, and member load errors will not be subject to the fine. I thought there'd be a standing ovation to me. However, even though the fine does not apply, these listings, we don't want to leave you with the impression that these listings will not be under scrutiny. There is still monitoring and compliance. If there's issues, these listings will not go to public portals such as realtor.ca, which is important to you and your clients. And in some cases, we will have the latitude to just pull it from member view as well until that issue is corrected. So again, the administrative penalty is going away, but we still have that error of monitoring and compliance because quality data is important. No question that with the monetary penalties in place, data quality improved. There was a time before the penalties that no education platform or program in the world would bring these errors down, and when those errors were started to get fined, compliance became paramount. But I think we've agreed over the last couple of years that it has flatlined. We've seen about the same percentage of errors and the same type of errors over time. Those penalties aren't really having, I don't think they're really having an effect on the data right now. And frankly, it's become an annoyance and a nuisance for members. And so that was one of the decisions to relieve members of the fine. The new rules are written, though, that they could be put back in place. So let's all take care and keep that error level low, keep that good data coming in, and then in future years there won't be any need to put those AMPs back in place. So that's good news for members, and it's going to be really interesting to watch that over the first 6 months, even 8 months, to see where that level of error goes without those penalties. We'll be watching that. So, any questions on that? Okay.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah,
About
sure.
the form, just for my information, because I know a lot of the discussion around the board table about this change from a Regina perspective was that there would be no indication that there's conditional. So if you have to choose one of these, isn't there gonna be some indication that there might be a conditional sale if it's got a line? Okay, it's not like it's gonna be nothing.
No, exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So just to paraphrase Karen, like, if your practice is to report conditional sales now, that's the first option on the form. Report your conditional sale like you always have, and it will go into the system and it'll be marked conditional in matrix, just like it is today. Okay, so there's no change in the practice there. If you want to report your conditional sales, just keep doing what you're doing. We're hearing that a lot of people will still do that, and that's fine. I think in other markets, they'll continue to do what they are used to. So that's the sort of the marriage of these two rules, was to allow practices in local jurisdictions to occur, but there needs to be some flexibility there, so.
One more?
Yep.
So this conditional info subject to, I'm assuming that's something that Saskatoon's been using to some degree, where they add financing, home inspection, or other?
Oh, no, so we have that on ours currently.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
that, I think we call it on our current one, it's like, the subject code, I think is what we call that now.
Yeah.
So you can, if you're gonna put like, financing and then until this day, so that it shows in the change message area that it's conditional financing until October 10. If if you want that level of data on your reporting, still do that, because that's how we do it today. Okay? Yeah, so there's still the option to do that. Okay? I think on the agenda, I'm just segueing into member load, so we'll just cover that off now. So, as many of you are aware, we've been facilitating training on member load. The goal here is to empower members to get their listing data into the system on their schedule, your schedule, not ours. And we are excited to give members the ability to react to growing consumer demands of immediacy. Now, this is nothing new for us. We've had the opportunity, members that could have taken broker load training for a long time now. We're just being more forward facing about it and saying, hey, if you want this training, if you want this access, talk to your broker, come see us, get the training. We live in an Instagram culture where your clients are swiping down, their data, their feed is refreshing, they're getting new information instantly, and there's an expectation that's being created, I think, in the marketplace and in society, that there's an instantaneous access to data. And it really belongs beyond social media now. We're seeing it really in the consumer product space as well, with Amazon is a great example. The consumer is largely getting what they want in very micro portions when they want it. The analogy I use is that if you send a listing to the board at 3:30 on the Friday of a long weekend, and I order a 12-pack of toilet paper off Amazon, I know which one's gonna get here first. And it's no criticism of our staff, they are hustling every single day, but the process doesn't allow for speedy to market sometimes, in times when it does not happen fast. Amazon's gonna win that one. And I don't think that's right in our current climate, and with what our clients, or what your clients are expecting of you. Correct data quickly to public portals and to other members so that they can bring their buyers. So we've been working with CREA to increase the speed in which our data goes to Realtor.ca. I believe right now we're at 15 minutes. So 15 minutes after that listing goes into the system, it should be live on Realtor.ca, which is a good thing. We've seen great results. But we do hear consistent feedback from members that they have an expectation that if their listing is sent to the office, it be inputted much quicker than we're able to accommodate right now. We do hear that. Where's my listing? Where's my listing? Where's my listing? And that's been a constant theme for the past few years. And I think it's driven from that consumer demand of immediacy. Right now, we have physically, as of this morning, we've physically board loaded more than 7,000 listings this year. That does not include amendments and sales. So there's a significant amount of documentation flowing through the three folks in the data department, and they're hustling. But it's ever increasing pressure on them to keep up because of that demand for immediacy. So currently we've had about 3,800 listings in our association loaded by members. So we still are about 70-30 rough split on board load to member load. And as you know, we have an 11 a.m. same day guarantee, but again, we're hearing that that needs to be quicker. And so we continue to battle that and to try and meet the expectations of the member. It really doesn't impact you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's what we really see the clutch point is on that Friday and the Fridays of a long weekend. We really see the angst rise in membership when they're worried that they're going to have to phone their client and say, "I'm sorry, it's not there yet, but it will be there." And so we're trying to help with that. Member load allows us to have a watchful eye on the data integrity and create the conditions for quicker to market data. There are a couple of things that we're watching very closely. One is our MLS portal vendor. So CoreLogic